Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day today. It is story time, and this is the first one I'm going to do. And one of the things that happens to me a lot is I'll be with someone sharing some coffee or having dinner, and I'll just share a story from my childhood, and it is so funny to me that my wife and I, we're just like, well, it's just a story. Everyone has these, but when we look at the couple or the person across the table and see the look of just shock and sometimes disgust and tears, we realize, oh, well, not everybody has that story. Everybody has different ones, and these are some of mine. So I had this unique past, and it helped me have a lot of stories, and so I want to share some of them with you. Now, to give you a little bit of context, my dad pastored churches in the state of Alabama most of my childhood. It was really all over the state of Alabama. We lived on the Mississippi-Alabama line, close to the Florida-Alabama line, close to the Georgia-Alabama line, and then pretty far up North Alabama, close to Tennessee, about an hour south of Tennessee. So we've just kind of been all over the place. But the one thing that stayed the same is he pastored churches in those areas. And one of the things I learned about churches a long time ago is churches are full of people, and inside churches you'll find some of the most amazing people in the world, and you'll find some of the most broken people in the very same place. That's why a church is one of the most beautiful things you can imagine, is because all of those different kinds of people are all hopefully trying to get closer to the Lord together, right? And so it ends up being a lot of different stories, and there was no way to hide from some of the things that were happening. So today's story, I want to tell you about one called Snakes in a Driveway. Now, here's kind of the setup for the story, and that is, my dad was pastoring this particular church, and I'm not going to give you the city or the name or the names of the people to protect the innocent and all the good things, but we're pastoring a church, and the church that he was pastoring, when he went there was this idea that this church was a lot of trouble. It was in a certain area, a lot of their own ideas about things, and they weren't really interested in being part of the denomination that we were part of. They kind of were just denomination name only. They kind of did whatever they wanted to do. Well, for whatever reason, my dad was like, yes, that sounds like a great idea. And so he went down there to pastor that church. And while he was there, everything was going great for a little while. And he found out that they wanted to build onto their church. They wanted to add a fellowship hall, a place where they could gather and share meals together. And it just sounded like a wonderful thing, right? Until he got to looking at how they were going to pay for it. And he started to notice that some of the booking wasn't correct. Some of the financials weren't correct. There was money coming in from weird places and different things. There's just a lot of details there that wasn't quite right. And my dad started to notice, this is not ethical. There's some things here that doesn't need to be done, and some processes here that's not right. And so he did what he thought was the right thing, and it was the right thing. And he said, no. I want us to build this fellowship hall, but we need to do it with good ethics and with integrity and all this. And so we can't build it this way. Well, in one conversation, my dad went from the hero, and we're so glad you're here, Pastor, to who do you think you are? And they decided at that moment they didn't want the Cannon family to pastor their church anymore. And they basically told us it was time for us to go. And they started doing different things to encourage us to leave. And they would do different things, such as break bottles in our driveway, so that we run over them. It would slash your tires, and it was in a place where we had a lot of different types of weather, but of course in Alabama, very, very hot. And so what they did is they opened up our deep freeze so that all of our meat and different things that we had would thaw out, so we have nothing to eat. And it was one of those things where it didn't happen on accident, right? It was on purpose. And finally it culminated in one day we come home and there were dead snakes in our driveway. And the implication of it is if you don't get out of town, you're gonna end up just like these snakes. And so you need to get out of town. And that was kind of the moment when we were like, maybe it's time to go. Now, to be true, we were trying to get out of there for a long time already, but the denomination we were part of, you didn't just leave, you needed to have another church to go to. And that was one of those moments where we was like, okay, it's time to go. Even at that church, there was this misunderstanding with my dad bought a vacuum cleaner to help clean the church. And after he got through cleaning the church, he brought it to the parsonage where the pastor lived, right beside the church, to vacuum the parsonage, just trying to keep up with things. And the people actually broke into the house trying to find the vacuum cleaner rather than just knocking on the door. They tried to, it was all kinds of things. But the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, at least for this young teenager, was when they killed a bunch of snakes and put them in our driveway. And it was at that point that we thought, man, we love Jesus and we love his church, but we getting out of here. And so before long, we finally found our way out of that town, and honestly have not been back but once since then, just to make sure that fire and brimstone hadn't fell on that place. And so that's story time for today. Snakes in the driveway. I hope you enjoyed it. And the reason for telling the stories are we all have them, right? But the great thing is that God is with us and God is for us, and that doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And so have you ever had a snake killed and put in your driveway as a warning, as kind of like the Alabama Mafia, right? So if you ever had one of those, put it in the comments down below, and I look forward to our next story time. I got another one from that same place that I might tell you sometime soon. See ya.